One of the hottest industry here is food and beverage.
What you have is a massive market to grow.
42 countries. You've seen it all. What is the difference?
My recommendation to anyone who comes into this country.
How do I deal with the concept?
I learned this lesson over the last couple of years since I started my business is,
Can I replicate? Do I need to localize, adjust?
the amount of not succeeding businesses in this environment is probably far bigger than you might anticipate or might think, because it's so tempting.
Secret sauce that you need to add to your F&B concept to stand out, to become successful. Hi guys, welcome to my new episode, Brands Through Stories. I'd like to thank you from my heart for subscribing to our channel, for giving us your likes, for sharing, for your suggestions. Our team is working super hard to make every episode better and better. And the channel is growing, and this is because of your support. Thank you so much and enjoy this episode. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and other GCC countries, they became the lands of opportunities for a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs. And one of the hottest industry here is food and beverage. Just to give you an example, the UAE food service market is growing at about 18% yearly. A lot of opportunities. But like always, with every opportunity, there is a challenge. And what I tell my clients is that competition here does not just come from the players in the industry and in your market, but from the players around the world. In today's episode, we're going to discuss a secret sauce that you need to add to your F&B concept to stand out, to become successful. And the best person to help me find the recipe for it is my guest today, Will Odwarka. Will is a true professional in F&B. He has more than 32 years of experience in the industry. He worked in more than 42 countries, and his portfolio has 1,000 restaurant concepts. He is also a CEO at the Heart at Work Hospitality Consultancy and a lecturer at many different educational institutions in Dubai and the UAE. Will, thank you so much. Thank you very much for finding time. It's an honor for me to have you on my podcast. We've been trying to do it for quite some time, but the rain,
Challenges
unfortunately.
is what you said, right?
Little challenges.
Yeah, hey, look.
They postponed it a bit, but thanks a lot. I'd like to start straight away. 42 countries. You've seen it all. You've done it all, probably. What is the difference? Tell me, what is your opinion? So I know you worked in Europe, in Africa, in the US, right? In the Middle East. Now, this industry here, in this part of the world, GCC in particular, is there anything special? What's the industry look like now?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I mean, I'm honestly very honored to be here. So thanks for the nice introduction. It's a question which is asked obviously a lot of times is what's different, right? And what you find out, the more you travel, the more countries you do, you find out that you look for similarities far more than for differences, because the differences are very often rooted in the culture, the way how the country has developed, the way how things work. So a difference is not necessarily a hindrance per se. It can be something which can be emphasized and can be worked with. Since we're sitting in the UAE or in the GCC, obviously we have a bit of a different story to this, right? We don't have 1,000 years of development of society. We have a period of several hundred years where things were pretty much the same, and then suddenly oil has been discovered, and suddenly society's literally in hyperspeed developed to the level where we are now. So all the things we see are very often driven by this kind of almost gold rush. Is this kind of, oh yeah, we have to go there, this is fantastic, this is great. And as you said, there is this massive growth and massive opportunity. So I think the UAE or the GCC in general is this, you have to look a bit closer in how things work here in regards to what the actual potential is, because superficially you won't get it.
Is there potential?
There is, obviously, there is potential, and the potential is a bit too vague, because the potential in the UAE, for example, is when we think UAE, we talk Dubai, right? We talk Dubai, then we talk a little bit about Abu Dhabi, and then we talk about the other Emirates. For us Westerners, obviously for the Arabs living here is a bit different story. But we say UAE, but we talk Dubai. If you think of UAE, it's about, 27,000 establishments, restaurants, cafes in this country?
Something
but
like
13,000 of them are in Dubai. And that's the official number. I don't even know what an unofficial number would be, but it's the 13,000 establishments in a 3.6 million population with a roughly, 17 million tourists? So when it comes to the numbers game, we have more units than we'll ever be able to make profitable with the number of people we have at hand compared to other places in the world. So you need to look, as I said, a little closer in figuring out what's needed, right? We have two categories where we are, I think, pretty well set. High-end and QSR. I think everything known to man is already here with a few exceptions. Anything else is in the high-end industry. Every celebrity chef, every great chef on the planet has already an outlet here, one way or the other. I wonder what is with the middle. So when it comes to potential, I think the middle is actually the biggest potential for any form of F&B in the UAE in particular. Obviously, other countries in the GCC is a bit different.
What about Saudi? Saudi is quite an interesting story that we're looking at today.
I do love, it's hard to say this, but I do love Saudi. I have to admit this. I love it because of all kinds of reasons, but I love it for the commitment to change, which is always something which I really embrace, is this element to go from one state, which you thought is the state forever. And then at one point there is this triggering element or this triggering moment, and that pushes you into suddenly everything goes lightning speed. And if you go back to Saudi 7 or 8 years ago when we were reveling about can women drive or not, now we're going into a country where nothing goes fast enough with a population of 70% or almost 70% below 30. So you have a demanding society, and you have only, 36 million people in the country. You have 15 cities with over 500,000 people. So what you have is a massive market to grow. It's probably the only market in the GCC where you can apply a proper development strategy because you have different layers of society to deal with, which makes it a very interesting place to deal with.
So if you had your own concept that you would want to roll out, would you start with Saudi?
If I would have the opportunity, I would probably look into this as close as I can, just for the sheer opportunity in the country. That doesn't rule out the UAE. It depends, as I said before, it depends a little bit of what kind of concept it is.
Yeah.
You said at the beginning, the secret sauce, right? Everybody's looking for it. Everybody looks for this crystal ball where you can look into and say, oh, if I look into this, then this is the answer. Unfortunately, in my opinion, and until somebody else convinces me otherwise, in my opinion, unfortunately, there is no substitution for the work you have to put in. So you have to put the work in. You have to figure out where are you, what is the market, how does it work, and then stick to your guns for a while until you find out if this is the right thing for your customers. There is no shortcut to success, and there is no shortcut to success here. It's one of the most competitive environments I have ever worked. And as you said, I worked or dealt with over 40 countries in my life. In regards to competitiveness, this is a very interesting place to be.
So I'd like to go back. I'd like to find the secret sauce. I know it's hard.
No, we're gonna do this. We're gonna get there.
Let's start with the comparison first. Yeah. Yep. So because it's not just amateurs or some young entrepreneurs who want to open the F&B. They're proper European concepts that are American and so on, are looking into the place here. Yep. Now, what is I would say not the difference, but maybe that let's put it a little bit of a difference that let's say with Europe. That you need to be aware of before even thinking of opening here.
This is since it's a several layered question. I try to look at the several. No,
let's peel off the layers.
I try to peel off the layers from an onion. So first things first. Comparison is probably one of the root causes for failure in any place.
Excellent.
Because,
what a question.
The reason is people compare based on what they know.
Yeah.
So you look at your own market, and it doesn't matter if it's the US or is it Germany or is it Singapore. You look at what you know, you go into a place and you're going to say, here's what I know, and now you try to replicate. And then you go into the market, most of the time blindfolded, because in your head is only how many stores can I build. So you go in there, take your comparison and say, yeah, well, there's this many people and there's this much money, I'm going to do it. In my personal experience, this is the secret sauce for failure, because you can't. You have to look into every country individually and figure out, how does the country work, who's there, how do people behave, and then figure out if your concept, in the way how you have ideated it, wherever that is suitable for the market you're in. If not, you have to either adjust or don't come.
Beautiful.
So that brings us to the next layer. So when you look into, you have not done that mistake. You have not just throw something over the fence, which, by the way, happened for years in this region. Mainly American built, maybe the same kind of things, because it worked. QSR worked. It's fast, it's cheap, it's relatively decent. It worked for the type of society which is here. So it had a huge success from the early 70s, since they came here into the region. So all of them, the McDonald's, the Burger Kings, whatever the names are, it doesn't matter. So that worked. That because it resonated with this kind of internationalizing of a society. Now that worked for a very long period of time. Does it still work? Not necessarily as a guaranteed model. There's enough QSR places here which have a hard time to get to success. We're not mentioning any names, but the reality is the amount of not succeeding businesses in this environment is probably far bigger than you might anticipate or might think, because it's so tempting. So to the next layer of your question, why do people do it? Because it's this, you look at the cost, you look at the, how do you operate a business? You get tempted by the idea that labor cost is a bit cheaper, access to market is not that difficult. And then what you do is you put your calculator out and you think, how many units can I build? You look at the biggest players, you think, oh my God, they open 600, they have already this. So you go, if I only do 100, that's awesome. So you convince your board and boom, off you go. You try to find a partner and then off you go, until you realize nothing of what you thought is actually what you can do. So I think the reason why it's so tempting is because it's this interesting combination. We talk about Dubai in particular here, Dubai potentially in parts in Abu Dhabi and certain parts of Saudi and Kuwait maybe, but is this really interesting combination of general tendency to eat out and in principle disposable income. And if you put these two together, there is this formula which says, if I have these, then I'm going to build as many stores as I can, because people are going to come. But according to what I see and according to what we do as a business, it's not as easy as it looks.
And anticipated numbers of people who are planning to move here or expected to move here. So it feels like, wow.
Yeah, but it says, I think is also this, when I said gold rush, is there is the beginning of a rush and there is the, let's say, when the rush has reached a certain level of maturity. Yeah. And I'm not speaking about the government and the government's initiatives. It's amazing what the country always pulls off. But in regards to F&B, since this is what we're talking about, I think we are in the middle or towards the upper end of the middle of that rush. So you're not coming as a first mover. You're not here and kind of changing the landscape. You come in when everybody's literally already here. So you cannot just say, I'm great and that's why I'm here. You have to steal market share from somebody else, because there is not a niche which has not been untapped. Every niche there is one form of F&B offering in any form, if it's dark kitchen or real restaurants or brick and mortar, doesn't matter. It is there. So you have to really kind of consider what it is you bring to the market to really become a successful entrepreneur here.
I remember 25 years ago or more, we were discussing actually with my childhood friends here, that there was a restaurant that it was in Hyatt Regency, I think it was called, and it was on the top that was moving. It was something incredible. And so while you're dining, you're moving around, and I think it was 1 out of 5 probably, and that was it. Yeah. So every occasion you have to celebrate, which you usually do like once in a quarter. Yeah. you go there. And that time probably that was
the
time.
That was the time. And if
Yeah.
and again, for all the people out there listening to this, I don't think what we're saying is you shouldn't come or it's not the right place. I think what I'm trying to say is you need to prepare for things. You cannot just come here because you saw something on social media and somebody said, "Hey, Habibi, come to Dubai," and here you are now, and that's the success. No.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not the case. You have to put effort in, you have to put the sweat in, you have to do all kinds of things because guess what? Other people are already here and they're here from around the planet and they're already trying to do their best as well. So you have to come up with something a bit better than just saying, "Hey, I'm here and I'm awesome," because I don't think that's enough.
I agree with you, and I think yes, there are still opportunities. It's the hard work and it's persistent and the expectation.
Absolutely.
Right? That it takes time to build something.
Absolutely.
So let's go step by step then.
Yeah.
What's the first step? Let's say for those who have successful already, chain somewhere in their country, what should they start with? What are the steps?
Well, obviously, although this sounds like self-marketing, is
do it.
Whoever considers to go here, please surround yourself with people which can support you with the way how you assess the market. It's either companies like us or there's hundreds of others which do the same thing, which basically say, "Hey, look, here's the market, this is the environment, this is the type of customer, this is the expectation, these are the regulations," so that before you start kind of looking for partners and doing things, that you have a kind of a better understanding how the market works. The reason why I'm saying this is because there's this general notion that says, if I can find a sheikh who puts he puts enough money in there, then I'm sorted. Well, guess what? That's a bit like a fairy tale, right? Yes, they exist. Yes, that happened, but that's not the way how business is done in this region. Most business people here know what they're talking about. Their business acumen is strong. They know from their very tight-knit society from each other how things work. So they know from other parties how things go. So just kind of saying, here's the thing, and I take $1 million and then everything goes well, that's I would highly recommend don't touch this. So do proper preparation. If you've done preparation, you understand what your business can or cannot do, then start a strategic partner search. And that partner search needs to fit your concept. It is not about the money in itself. It's also who is actually capable to operate, to roll out, to bring enough hard work with them to put the brand rightfully on the map. Just putting it is not enough. You have to have the operational capabilities and stuff. So my recommendation to anyone who comes into this country, regardless if it's a single operator or if it's a chain, is you need to put more effort into the market research. You cannot just come here and say, "Hey, there's so many restaurants, I should build a restaurant." You wouldn't do that anywhere else on the planet, by the way, because it would be too dangerous, because the mitigating factors, the risks are far higher in other societies, because there is different laws, there is different fees, there is taxes, there is so many things which impact your business. So you would be a bit more careful
right?
than you are here. Here you think, "I'm going to do it and it's going to be okay because it's all really easy." No, it's not.
Yeah, I think it's also an overall culture of success here.
Yeah.
So everyone is super successful.
Absolutely. And this is, I mean, I think I can kind of relate to this. Is yes, it's very tempting. There's no way. I mean, of course, it's tempting when you be surrounded in an environment where everything smells like success, but not everything you see is actually what you get. Sometimes that success, which you think is there, isn't really there, but you do not have the depth to look into it, right? It's very superficial. So that superficiality, unfortunately, leads to lots of people's dreams bursting because they haven't put the work in. They just thought, "I come here and because of all the things I thought, this is going to be great." It's not in my personal view, that's not the way.
And since we're talking about people, I'd like to add from my side, they are successful people, but they're not loud.
No,
right?
absolutely true.
And that's so important, what you've said, find the right people here who can show you the market. So, but those usual people who are not loud.
No,
They
they're
are not everywhere on your
No,
Instagram and
no,
LinkedIn saying
no.
how great they are. They're
No.
usually people through references that you slowly find and build through your network.
Absolutely right. I 100% agree.
So people thinking, research, considering
Yeah.
everything. What about concept? So let's say concept. The country is full of different nationalities, right? If we're talking the UAE, Saudi is a different culture also if I were to compare it to Europe with the different values and so on. What do I do with the concept? Let's say if I want to, can I replicate? Do I need to localize, adjust? How do I deal with the concept?
Well, there's enough examples now here in this region to say replication works. I mean, look at the big players in QSR or look at big players in certain restaurant concepts. It's pretty much what their concept is with a kind of a minor localization. The localization might not be in your face. The localization might be in process, in supply chain, in manufacturing, in whatever. There might be elements which are localized because of the sheer efficiency of the business when you roll it out here, so that you don't need to ship a piece of meat from the US, so you can literally figure that out here. So there is a lot of localization, but not necessarily in the way how the concept is perceived by the customer. Then there is concepts where, because of regulation, cultural limitations, and other things, you might need to localize much stronger. You might need to adjust your system. Think of alcohol. Think of pork. Think of things which are haram. Anything which is there, you might actually be in a situation where you say, "Hey, look, my concept's built on pork knuckles." Probably you would consider a different market, or you would kind of understand that there are certain regulations. You need to have certain kitchens. You need to have different things. So it's the same with everything. Concept-wise, here, this is a community which loves to share. It's a community which sits together. It's a community, when you think of the Arabic culture, it's something where family plays a role, society plays a role. In my personal opinion, far more than in certain parts of Europe.
Right.
So if you have a concept which tries to cater for everybody, you need to find a way to encompass that in your business, or you find out that there is one particular type of people which works best for your concept, and then you need to stick, as I said before, you need to stick to your guns and say, this is my concept. You don't sell burgers and pizzas because you don't have the competency for it. Stick to what you think you're really good at, and then have the endurance to be able to convince the customer, hey, look, you're really good. I'm really good at this. Come in, have a try, figure out how it works. So I think concept-wise, it's the same as with everything. Look at the market, look at what it is. It's not easy to get data on things.
Yeah,
so
that's another thing.
You need to put, that's what I mean. I think what we both mean is you have to put more work in. You have to come here, you need to look around, you need to see things, you need to get a sense, and not just the optics, not just the way how it's wrapped or packaged. You need to go inside and try to understand the deeper end of the story so that you can assess if your business would work here or not.
In our world, in the branding world, we are always saying more focused you are, better chance to stand out. Is it similar, would you say, here now with so many competition?
Focus is probably one of the most lacking things here, is focus. Is because we are so tempted by surface. I think when it comes to the way how kitchens are built, the way how design is considered, it's not just the fact that design is important. It suddenly becomes this, it's all about it. And the reality is, if you have a $2,000 chair and I don't feel comfortable, guess what? I couldn't care less how much you spend on that chair. It doesn't help me to feel comfortable. So if you put too much emphasis on one element of the whole story, it's a bit like you write a book with 800 pages, you put 90% of these 800 pages in the introduction of characters, and then you only have 100 pages left for the whole story. Doesn't work. You need to kind of look into these things and figure out how does the whole story comes around. Otherwise, you just sell the surface, and if you sell the surface, the funny thing with customers and guests in all businesses, they're really good in detecting if you're authentic or if this is a smoke screen. And if it's a smoke screen, you're going to hang that on a tree here than you hang anywhere else in the world. There's no much difference. It might be perceived differently, but it happens in the same way.
So the concept, the research, the concept, do you feel that you've mentioned the aesthetics part of it? And sometimes I see, at one point we had flowers everywhere hanging from the, the ceiling.
Gardens everywhere.
Yeah, curtains everywhere.
Yeah.
Today is something else. So you could see, I feel sometimes like it's a fashion trend.
Yeah.
One day everyone is that, and you feel like it's, it's ever changing, and it's someone is following, one another.
It is.
And in this case, is that the right concept? Is that the right way, or does it actually help you with the with the production, not the construction
I don't
costs?
think so. Honestly, I don't think so. I think this is a thing. I think is the society in this region. I think it's fair to say is influenced by opinions. And I mean opinions in regards to a designer,
neighbor,
a neighbor, a social media content creator who says this is the new way.
Yeah.
And then this becomes the new way. I think the influencer element here, I think, is far more influential than in other parts of the world, because people tend to lean towards it to a certain extent. So when a restaurant starts to do elaborate flower decorations, everybody thinks, if this is the new thing to do, then let's do flower decorations. But I think in F&B in particular, and this is what we're talking about, what people forget is a guest, and back to our beginning when we said comparisons don't work. In regards to guests, comparisons work far better than other things, because every guest, everywhere on the planet, has a certain expectation what he will get in any food and beverage outlet. It's either food, shelter, safety, comfort, fun, whatever it is. All these things are related to his or her own expectation where they feel right or well or great. If you can create this, I tell you, you could use the oldest chair on the planet. If you can create that moment of interaction, of memorable experience, I promise you that guest will come back to you over and over and over again. It has not automatically to do, I have spent as much as the other guy and therefore I need to be as successful. It has not to do with it. It is a curation of a story. It's a bit like a book. You have to read it as a whole to get the story. You cannot just take a part of it and say, this is the story. No, it's not. It has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. So the same is for any F&B environment. It doesn't matter if it's a QSR, if it's a fast casual somewhere mid-market, or if it's a high-end restaurant. If you can't get the story right, the food or the design is not going to save you. You're going to fail.
Absolutely. And I think one of the storytellers would be your people, probably working in service, right? Which, what part of the book? Here...
It's a story and a capture. It's a separate entity here in this podcast, I guess.
What's going on?
Oh yeah, this is an interesting one.
Yeah, I think it's the problem with the service hasn't changed in the last 28 years I've been here.
Yeah.
I would say, I think 28 years ago it was a little bit more considered because there wasn't a lot of opportunities to work elsewhere.
This is funny that you say this, because it's one of the things we love to talk most about, apparently, is the people component, because every restaurant on the planet, unless it's a robot, every restaurant is built on the interaction of people, right? So forget whatever is going to happen in 100 years, but now there's an interaction between an individual and another individual. The one individual is the waiter and the other individual is the guest. If that interaction works in my favor as guest, that's what I will remember. If the food is fantastic, but I cannot create that connection, the food is not going to save you.
Right.
If the food is mediocre, I'm not recommending to do mediocre food, but let's say the food is mediocre, but there is a great interaction between people, the food will be perceived much better than it potentially was. So the people element is super important everywhere in the world, and it becomes a real issue in the world. Guess what? We do not have the same issue. We have enough supply of people. And I think we have a tendency to overcome skill with heads. If I have a problem, I'm going to throw people against it. Oh, 5 people didn't work, I throw 10. Then I have 10 people, but not managed, not trained, not whatever. The only thing I get is chaos. I get this unmanaged amount of people in a restaurant which don't really know what to do because we never put the effort in. The companies which apparently have a different mindset, and there's a couple here, in the way how they educate the people, in the way how they bring people along, in the way how they make people an integrated element of the story, they have apparently much more success in what they do. So I'm a massive advocate for look into how you can make the life of the people you're hiring so much better, so that they become your ambassadors as a business, because they will do a significantly better job than a $2,000 chair. I promise you.
I agree with you. I think if they feel that what they're doing, they're actually part of something better, something bigger, and that part, or their work 100%. Is part of their life, 100%. It's a different story.
100%.
Yeah, though there is an element of, I know a lot of companies are afraid to put money into the training of their staff because
they leave.
Yeah, which happens.
Which brings us to retention, which is one of the big challenges here in the country, and not just here, in other places as well. Guess what? That's related to the way how you do things. Retention is not just an element of, but I pay you right and I trained you. In today's world, every human being is interested to find an environment where they are welcome and respected in any way. It doesn't matter where in the world. It's the same. I don't understand why people constantly make a difference between respectfulness here or respectfulness in Europe. It's the same thing.
I haven't heard.
It's human beings, and human beings and respect should always be together, right? It's not a matter where you're from. It's a matter of human beings should respect each other. So if you do that and you create that environment where an individual can thrive, these individuals will never leave, because that's where they feel most respected, most welcome, whatever. If you only take an element out of it, it's like you take a jigsaw puzzle and you make the right upper corner and the left down corner and the left corner. So you don't get the whole picture, you just get a fragment of it. You need to do the whole thing. And the whole thing requires, unfortunately, a lot of work. And that's something where lots of companies say, it's too much work for me. I don't care.
I just change them.
Because I have enough people, so I'm going to change people. So if it's a restaurant which is built on relationship, on transferring the story, if you constantly change the waiter, you change the way how the customer perceives you, because he will never see the same waiter. There is no way to. That's one of the things the Americans were really good at, is this element of, exactly what happened. Katie will be there or Jack will be there, and exactly they will take care of you, and this is fantastic. And I think to a certain extent, not as much as it was probably 30 years ago or 20 years ago, today with technology and other things changing the landscape, but still, that interaction is still worth gold in my opinion.
And while you were talking, I was thinking, I've been recently to Vienna, to your place. There was a beautiful restaurant there. Nothing fancy, right in the center of Vienna. Nothing fancy in terms of the interior that we got used to here. Yeah. The guy was so self-confident, the waiter, that to the point of a little bit of arrogance. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was one of the best coffee I've ever had. Yeah. A little bit of a coffee with a little bit of arrogance. Yeah. And then taking back me to last week, dining experience with my friends. It was, one of the great restaurants, flat food, service of people who are scared of you before they even come to your table. Yeah. And then the cherry on the cake was what? The bill.
Yeah, of course.
The only thing that saved it all is my friends. That's it.
It's the bill.
Yeah, the bill. Yeah. Oh my God.
Hey, I didn't want to buy the restaurant. I just want to eat here.
Yeah.
I know the feeling. Yeah. I know the feeling.
So I think the confidence in your team that they're doing the right job, they know what they're selling, and respect, you're right. I think it's...
But I think this is, we spoke about developments of societies. We're talking 50, 60 years here in regards to where the modern kind of GCC development started, let's put it this way. I think you need to give it another couple of decades before it becomes a different mindset, a different thing, because it has a lot to do with the empowerment of people. It has a lot to do with the way how you allow things to unfold, and it has also to do with how the society respects the fact that these things are happening. So a waiter who is afraid of a customer fails. There's nothing on the planet which will help that restaurant to succeed if the waiters are afraid of an interaction with the customer, regardless where the customer is coming from, because that's what the whole story is. The waiter tells the story of the restaurant. If the waiter cannot do this because they think, oh my God, I cannot do this, then your concept will fail, in my personal opinion, because then it's only food and design, and there's always somebody who does better food or better design than you, in my view.
And better price.
And better price.
See how much I heard. Oh, I was hurt last week.
yeah, well, I can understand.
So research, concept, food will be part of it.
Yeah.
The people, retention, all your stuff. Yeah. What else can we add into that? I know it's the topic of your 32 at least years of experience.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Is there anything else we need to very much consider? And there's something specific in that.
So we talked about people. We talked about the market research and kind of getting a sense what you're doing. We know that people are super important in the way how you kind of, bring them along with your story. What we haven't talked about is you have to have a story. If you don't have one, there's nothing to tell, right? So when you have a concept, you've understood the market, so you need to kind of adjust to the story you tell when it comes to the market. The other thing which I think is missing is when it comes to marketing and when it comes to the strategy, how you promote your business. I think most of the things I see here are inadequate because they're too much of the same. They're not really looking into what I do, and I don't know how many places I've been to in the last couple of years since I'm here, is the amount of nonsense I have seen is just staggering. But somebody put the money in. Somebody hired people.
For example,
somebody whatever.
Anything.
I don't want to use.
I have some nonsense.
You can do that. Yeah, you can do that. But I think it's unfair. The reason why I don't use examples is because it's unfair. Because at the end of the day, I don't know the whole story. But what I can say as a guest is the fact that you have not curated the whole thing properly. You have not thought how you're going to do this. Basically means whoever invested behind it has wasted his or her money. And for what? Just because whoever worked with them or consulted them or run the whole thing did not spend an extra couple of days or weeks or month potentially and sit down and said, look, do we really need to do this? Is this the right thing to do? Does this make sense? And maybe that would help some of the businesses not to be there. I don't know. I think you asked this question about comparison and different thing. I think in regards to how people go under here, it's a bit of a different story than in other markets. So concepts last much longer.
Here?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, really?
Why? Because they got sold or handed over or somebody takes over.
Right.
So in Europe, an individual would go bust in 6 months when you figure out, hey, look, it's not going to happen. It's cost me more money, whatever. The same business would not go bust in the same time frame. So the kind of the pain is going to be prolonged over several owners over the time. And with that, the concept might still be here in a couple of years, although it never really worked.
Oh, that's very interesting.
It's just it's the same thing. When it comes to data, it's hard to get the data, but in my book, no guess, no business.
That's as simple as that.
So if you have a restaurant and there is no guests, there is usually no business. So now you could say, yeah, but I do 90% with delivery. That's beautiful. Then I would close the restaurant and just do delivery, if that's the case. But if you have a restaurant with tables and waiters and stuff, and you never fill that place in 7 days a week over 12 months a year, there is a high likelihood that you might not be successful with that business.
Though I know there are some restaurants, or at least it was before, that they only survive on Ramadan. So they wait whole year to do that. It's probably not in the high-end
which is a great thing, a great point you bring. That's why I'm always saying when it comes to concepts here in the market, we don't have enough stuff for the majority of people. Because if you go to a place in Dira, in a nice biryani place with no rent, they might actually blow the roof off with the profitability of that place because they have a certain amount of customers, they know this works, the food costs great, and they're gonna replicate this for the number of people they have. That might work just wonderful 5 months a year, and they might still make enough profit to feed their family and to get to the right place because they have not invested $5 million and pay a rent of $2 million a year. Because with that, it's really hard to make a 1 month business a 12 months profitability. It's just not working.
You reminded me about this beautiful concept, Ravi,
Yeah.
the Pakistani restaurant that they've been here for forever. Yeah. It's Pakistani authentic food, and it was featured in, I think, Times Out or somewhere. So it was a tourist spot in Tehran. You apparently go there. It's plastic furniture and so on. But the guy prepares one of the best Pakistani food.
There's a couple
And
of
tourists used to go there. And then during COVID, they went through a difficult time and they were almost closing. And someone published an article and people were helping them.
We need to rescue them. That's good. That's a great story.
It's and Adidas, and we'll put this maybe in the episode also, the images of that, then decided, the local probably office here, to launch the special footwear with the Ravi branding on it.
Super.
To support them.
That's fantastic. Great story.
It's beautiful, and I think it still exists. I think they've even opened the second branch somewhere.
Which is a good segue to, I think it's another interesting element here, which I really like, is there's more and more homegrown development in this part of the world. There's more and more people going out of their comfort zone and say, you know what, we're going to start something else. We're going to start something for ourselves. We're going to put our local ingredients. We're going to put our local stuff, and we start kind of doing cooking and doing other things and become more, more relevant. There's this fantastic brisket meat place, which I know has started here. Hatam Farm, whatever. I think there is so many interesting, cool things where the locals start to jump on that bandwagon, which I think from a society standpoint, I really appreciate that, because it changes the landscape a bit. It's not everything has to come from abroad. There's also a local kind of development which breaks up this idea that everything has to be, a concept from the shelf. Something can be done from here locally, and I really appreciate that development quite immensely, because I think it's great.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're running out of time, but I'd like to go very quickly and express question in terms of the just opportunity. Yeah. By the country, if possible.
Saudi and UAE, or
UAE we've discussed. So don't look just at the high, high end. There's a huge opportunity, like you've said.
Mid-market, fast casual, something where I can go with my wife, easy, have some food. If alcohol is allowed and it's licensed, try to figure out if that can be done. But something where I could go more often, and I don't need to break the bank for actually doing that type of food.
Beautiful. Saudi Arabia, what would still high end?
Saudi Arabia has kind of all of the potential in a certain extent, because most of the companies are focusing on Riyadh and Jeddah, but there's so many other places in Saudi Arabia. So I think Saudi still has that room for everything. I think on the high end side, so on fine dining opportunities, I think Saudi is now going at a speed which I'm not sure is healthy over time, because you overcreate. There is influx of new restaurants, which is just amazing and massive, and they're fantastic, but the population or the society, the people for these restaurants to fill them, I haven't seen them yet, because the income structure in Saudi is a bit different than the one here in the UAE. Other markets, Kuwait has some extremely fantastic food and beverage spots. They have some great companies in Kuwait which built homegrown concepts perfectly. Interesting market, small market though, but has some room. There's enough disposable income, and since it's a relatively conservative market, I think it's fair to say, people actually tend to go out a lot and try things out a lot, and there is some interesting options.
I've heard, sorry to disturb you. I remember when I worked in Kuwait, there was a Meat and Co, I think, outlet. And they used to tell me there's much better Meat and Co
than the Meat and Co.
than in Dubai. And I believe, and when I ate it, I actually believed in that.
One of my favorite places in Kuwait, since we're speaking about it, was White Rabbit from Gastronomica. It was one of the greatest experience in regards to service, in regards to the whole hospitality element, the food, everything was beautiful. And I mean, there was no alcohol. So at least it was still possible to create a great atmosphere without booze and wine. So I really enjoyed that place quite a bit. Yeah, and the other markets, obviously, when you think of Bahrain and Qatar and Oman, obviously it's great. There's great countries here, but when it comes to strategy and rollout, it's a bit more difficult, I'd say, because it's not necessarily very big. Yeah. So you need to kind of really think of, where do I go? What does my how tight could my target audience be to still place a unit to work from that number of people if I do not have that? And one of the biggest trends, which I think now going through all the countries, and I saw one of the best examples was Riyadh, is market and food halls. So something what Timeout did here on obviously on a different scale. Al Mamlaka in Kingdom Tower in Riyadh did an unbelievable job to create a social dining experience, which I haven't seen much in the world. It is beautiful in the way how it's done, the way how it's laid out. It doesn't hit you over the head. It's so smooth, and it just emphasizes how the society is changing. So I think these things, it's an ancient model, right? It's nothing new. Market halls are not new. They are here for 1,000 years. It's basically putting local food and putting food together and present it to people. This is just revived. I love it. So I'm a great fan.
Amazing. So it's another opportunity to look at.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
For sure.
So it's hot industry,
yeah,
a lot of stuff
it's
still with its own, but be patient.
Yes.
Be patient and invest in your people.
So it's not going to go fast now.
You're an entrepreneur yourself. You're a CEO of Heart at Work, right? A hospitality consultancy. So I ask these 3 questions, all my guests at the end of the episode. To be a successful entrepreneur, as we all want to be, or we are, what do you need to do on regular basis? What you shouldn't be afraid of, and what to stay away from? So regularly, what to do?
I mean, I learned this lesson over the last couple of years since I started my business is, unfortunately, you have to stay focused as an entrepreneur. There is not a leaning back moment. As an employee of a company, you have these moments when you can say, whatever. I pretend I work hard, but actually, as an entrepreneur, if you're not focused, you lag behind. And as an entrepreneur with your own business, there is no check coming from anybody. So if you don't put the work in, there is no check. So you need to put that work. So that focus combined with putting the work in and not shying away from it, I think is a key attribute or a key attitude you should have. And it never ends. So it doesn't really matter if you're a kind of a startup or if you're a multi-billion-dollar organization. Your focus might shift from what it is, but at the end of the day, if you're not focused, even big companies can fail. There's enough examples out there from multi-billion-dollar companies which ceased to exist because people lost focus on what actually is going on in the marketplace. So I think that's really important. The second one was
don't be afraid of.
Don't be afraid. I think you shouldn't be afraid of anything.
Just
if you're an entrepreneur, I think you shouldn't be afraid. You should have respect of things which you might not know, but you should immediately kind of find out, how do I tackle them? If you're not really good in talking, surround yourself with people which can. If you're not really good in fundraising, talk to people which are good in fundraising. Learn a little bit about it so that you know how this works. So afraid? Don't get intimidated. I just put an article out, a kind of a post out in LinkedIn a couple of days ago. One of the things you always get confronted with as an entrepreneur is you get confronted with all these great stories of individual leaders. Now they run multi-billion-dollar companies, and you get confronted with it. And there's the 10 rules of success, and there's the 5 rules of winning, and there's the 3 rules of whatever,
and the secret sauce.
And you look at it and you think, oh my God, and I'm not there, and whatever. You are your own story. You're the best version of you. There is no other version of you out there. And it doesn't really help to constantly look at other people and say what other people's story is. You can take stuff out of it, but don't get intimidated by, I don't know, Jeff Bezos telling you now how it was in the early days of Amazon, because that's not as much relevant as you might think. You are maybe the next Jeff Bezos. You don't know yet. So don't get too carried away by these things. Just, stick to yourself. If you think it's the right concept, stick to it. If you figure out it doesn't work, then be honest with yourself to find out that it's not the right thing. We had a catering business, or kind of an events management business here. We had to close it last year because we're absolutely clueless. We know about catering. We know how to do caterings. We know how to do events, but it's not our business. There's other people out there which are much better than us. So it was the right thing to do. They were saying, hey, look, this is not going to go anywhere, so we're going to close this thing down. And it was the right decision. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to do that without being afraid. And last but not least, when you said what not to do.
Stay away from.
Stay away from.
Yeah.
I think one of the sins of today's time is gloating, boasting, showing snotty behaviors when you're winning. Is, winning and losing will pass. Regardless how great you are today, there is a fair chance that next year there might be a moment and you're not that great. There is not a constant upwards journey of success. There is always blips downwards. Bear that in mind when you're going through things and you found funding. I just had this recently with a client. You found funding far too early in the game. Lots of money. Now you have lots of money. What do? Usually you make all the mistakes on the planet because of that early funding, because you haven't yet developed the source how you run your business. But suddenly you get all the influx of money. So you do not do what I think is right, is kind of a prudent and proper and professional approach in the way how you spend that money, so that you avoid some of these unnecessary, usually ego-driven mistakes which you do at that time. So as a conclusion is, again, what you don't know, surround yourself with people which do know. Like you and I talking is this kind of, whatever it is, it's not my primary world. So that's why we talk to each other, and I love this. So if you have this, reach out, build your network of people which are not just tapping you on the back and saying you're super and you're fantastic. Surround yourself with people which have the ability to say, hey, look, I'm not sure. I don't think this is the right way, or here's what I thought, and here's how I can help you with, or this is what I think, because it keeps you grounded and it helps you to progress on your journey, because it's your journey, and your journey is on you to own and to develop.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think you're a man full of insights.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
I could sit down and write down all the notes. And I was thinking, I'm going to go through the episode again. I'm going to pick up your wisdoms from there.
Thank you very much, Nina. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. No, we have to do this properly.
No.
Here we go. So,
how was your experience?
Here with this? I love it. I could do this forever. It's really cool. A statue.
What a boring podcast.
That takes away about 80% of my communication skills, because if I cannot move, I'm dead. It's just,
I'll tell you a secret. I'm always nervous, afraid, and I don't know what's going to happen.
That's good.
Marwan, are you nervous?